Kendrick Johnson was just 17 years old when he died in January 2013. Details surrounding his death are unclear and have raised the question on whether or not his death was a tragic accident or something much more sinister. Johnson was found dead in a gym at Lowndes County High School in Georgia. The original autopsy reported Johnson's death as an accident, stating the teen suffocated after getting stuck in a gym mat while reaching for his sneaker. However, Johnson's parents weren't convinced and got a court order to have their son's body exhumed. The second autopsy report was shocking and introduced the possibility of foul play, stating that Johnson had sustained non-accidental blunt force trauma. But that wasn't all. What the pathologist told the family next was horrific. During the first autopsy, the internal organs were removed and examined before being returned for burial, which is the standard for autopsies. However, when the private pathologist who conducted the second autopsy on Johnson opened up the teen's remains, the brain, heart, lungs, liver, and other organs were missing. Every single organ from the pelvis to the skull was gone and had been replaced with newspaper. Kendrick Lamar Johnson was 17, muscular, and often quiet. He was 5'10" and 160 pounds, described as a power forward, a seamless hurdler, and a safety who hit like a linebacker. His favorite meal came in the form of a hamburger from a truck stop down I-75, and he was known to rarely start fights with people. His favorite college football team was a toss-up between Florida and Ohio State, and he hoped to someday learn to grill as well as his father, win state, and go to college. Sadly, Kendrick would do none of those things. On the morning of January 10, 2013, he arrived at Lowndes High School wearing 3 layers of shirts, a white tank top, an orange t-shirt, and a white t-shirt, as well as a belt, jeans, and black gym shorts. He attended classes that day, talked with friends, and at 1:09 p.m. walked into the school gymnasium. However, what happened next is still unclear. Jackie Johnson doesn't like to talk about that night, but she says it was about 9:30 p.m. when she started to worry about her son not coming home. And at 11, she drove back and forth from home to school looking for him. According to police records, she called the police at 12:30 a.m. on Friday and was told he was probably out with some fast-tailed girl. Memories of the next day come in flashes for Jackie. She remembers being at school at 8:30 a.m. asking if anyone had seen her son. There were text messages she received saying there are ambulances and fire trucks in the parking lot. No one can come in the entrance. And then there was a sentence she wasn't supposed to hear. The one said to the guidance counselor whose phone volume was turned up too loud. They found a body in the gym, and Jackie knew it was Kendrick. As an investigation went underway, detectives pieced together a theory for what they believe happened on January 10th. The high school surveillance cameras show Kendrick walking into the gym at 1:09 p.m. that day, according to the report. Kendrick goes in and off to the right towards the corner where the mats are, says Lieutenant Stride Jones. Shortly after, other students can be seen entering the gym. We can only assume, Sheriff Chris Prine says, that he had gone down into the mat by that time. But what would have caused Kendrick to tumble head first into a rolled up mat? For investigators, that answer was centered on a pair of black and white Adidas Pro models. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a shoe near Kendrick's body. In the sheriff's version of events, that sneaker was key to Kendrick's death. One student told Detective John Marion that in the previous semester he had seen Kendrick place his gym shoes into the rolled-up mats and retrieve them the next day. Students were known to store their shoes in the mats because they were more convenient than lockers and didn't require rental fees. Prine says, it appears that since the mats were stacked up on end and had been moved and stored that way over the holiday break, his shoes weren't where he had left them, so he had to climb up onto the mats. A statement from the sheriff's office read, at some point, Kendrick Johnson either reached into the center of one of the rolled up mats or fell into the center opening of the mat and became lodged. Stuck in the mat upside down, blood rushed to Kendrick's head. In that position, Prine said, a few things could be going on. The abdominal organs could be pressing against the diaphragm, making it more difficult for the diaphragm to flatten. There could also be the matter of the tightness of the mat compressing his chest, which would do the same thing. And if his face were pressed up against the inside of the mat, then that could impede him from drawing in air. It could be a combination of those things. Over time, investigators believed Kendrick's breathing slowed and eventually stopped. However, Kendrick's parents, Kenneth and Jackie Johnson, never believed that version of events. It was true that Kendrick didn't have a locker, but as for the other pieces of the theory, they didn't fit for the Johnsons. For one, they would say, why would he try to reach all the way down into a mat to grab his shoes? The mat was about 6 feet tall, and there was no way he could expect his arms to reach the bottom. And even if he did reach into the mat, how could he have fallen in? The center hole in the top of the rolled up mat was 14¼ inches in diameter, according to the incident report. But the coroner measured Johnson's shoulders at 19 inches across. He couldn't even fit into the mouth of the hole, much less fall all the way down into the bottom. And what about all the people in the gym? Could no one see him? If Kendrick did in fact fall in arms first and hit the bottom of the mat, wouldn't his legs have been sticking into the air? Yes, the mats were 6 foot 2 inches tall, but if Kendrick fell in with his arms stretched out at 5'10", part of his legs should have remained sticking out. Also, the Johnsons ask, why didn't anyone hear him scream? Their surveillance video shows Kendrick entering the gym at 1:09. The school bell rang for the next class to begin 14 minutes later. It's unclear how long it would have taken Kendrick to lose consciousness, but according to experts, it wouldn't have been immediate. If Kendrick were trapped, wouldn't he have called for help? The mats were near a wall, but still easily within view and earshot of center court. For his devastated parents, it's hard to believe that none of the other people using the gym that day would have heard him. One of the photographs included in the investigative report raises another important question. The photo shows Kendrick's other pair of shoes, orange and white Nikes, in the mat with Kendrick, only they're not at the bottom of the mat where Kendrick would have been reaching. Instead, they're on top of him, lodged between Kendrick's lower body and the inside of the mat. If Kendrick was in fact reaching into the mat for his shoes, how did a pair end up falling in after him? To make matters even more mysterious, drops of blood were found on a wall about 50 feet from where Kendrick's body was discovered. According to Kendrick's parents, there has been zero effort to determine whose blood it was or how it got on the wall. Why not test the blood? Why leave any doubt? All of this information has led the Johnsons to have their own theory about the case. Kendrick was murdered. Even if you don't believe this theory, it's hard to disagree with the Johnsons that some aspects of the sheriff's account make little sense. The Johnsons are demanding a convincing and rational explanation of how their son died, and they believe the authorities have failed to provide one. First, there was the issue with the coroner. According to Georgia law, police must notify the local coroner or medical examiner immediately after discovering a dead body. In this case, they waited 6 hours after the body was discovered. And then came the time for Kenneth to identify his son's body. He drove to the Valdosta Lounge Regional Crime Laboratory where he met with 2 deputies and a crime scene technician who escorted him to the room where the body was held. Kenneth remembers how odd it was that the room where his body was held was surprisingly warm. When Kenneth saw Kendrick's body, he leaned in close, his nose inches away from Kendrick's skin, and moved his eyes up and down the body, examining for any indication of the misconduct that he suspected. Kendrick's lips were swollen, the skin discolored. Kendrick's face looked so unlike that of the boy who Kenneth remembers his son being. As he was bent over looking, he noticed some scratches on Kendrick's hand and discoloration in his face. He even checked Kendrick's fingernails, which had been clipped, strange for Kendrick who preferred to keep his nails long. Aside from failing to immediately notify the coroner on the day Kendrick's body was discovered, there was another problem in handling his remains. The Monday after his death, the body was sent to the Georgia Bureau of Investigative Crime Lab for an autopsy. After it was completed, the body was returned to Valdosta. The body had been moved by Steve Owens, a retired Valdosta police officer who owns a company that transports the deceased. When Owens retrieved the body from the crime lab, he signed a property inventory sheet acknowledging receipt for 2 white socks, a pair of pants with a belt, black shorts, boxers, and 3 t-shirts. Usually, the body is returned to the family with a bag of personal effects, clothing, accessories, etc. But that day, Harrington Funeral Home received 2 bodies from the GBI crime lab. One arrived with clothing, the other body, Kendrick's, did not. Kendrick's only came with a pair of broken headphones. Somewhere between the crime lab and the funeral home, Kendrick's clothing disappeared. Kendrick's parents believe those items may contain evidence indicating a physical struggle, giving weight to their suspicion that Kendrick's death was no accident. More importantly, they could have had fiber or DNA evidence. Owens, who transported the body, did not respond to requests for comment. Eventually, the GBI's autopsy results corroborated the sheriff's theory. Cause of death, positional asphyxia. Manner of death, accidental. According to the medical examiner, there was no obvious foreign body material or acute damage, she wrote, and only noted superficial abrasions and tears on the fingers and the right wrist. However, the Johnsons believe they saw more than just superficial abrasions. A photo taken after the autopsy showed that their son was barely recognizable. His skin was darker, his lips were swollen, and his head appeared terribly misshapen. In terms of evidence, King, the Johnsons' lawyer, doesn't focus on the grotesque image, which is now infamous around the town. A post-autopsy photo reveals little about the way a body looked upon death, he insisted. Instead, King emphasizes the photos taken immediately after Kendrick's body was discovered. Photos that show discoloring on Kendrick's face, as well as notes about the body's condition in the EMT report. King believes there were signs of bruising the medical examiner had missed. This is why the Johnsons paid to have Kendrick's body exhumed, using funds from their attorney's office and some donations. After they lifted Kendrick's casket from the ground, his body was sent to Florida pathologist Dr. William Anderson for a second autopsy. The results contradict the GBI medical examiner's findings. While the initial autopsy had declared the cause of death to be positional asphyxia, this autopsy revealed the cause of death to be blunt force trauma to the right side of the neck and jaw, the same area in which the EMT had noted bruising. The GBI's autopsy called Kendrick's death an accident. Anderson described the injuries as unexplained, apparent, non-accidental blunt force trauma. Anderson examined previously undissected portions of Kendrick's jaw and neck, finding evidence of bleeding in the mandible and the tissue around the corroded body, a nerve that monitors blood pressure. Anderson said that he is treating this case the way a state medical examiner would treat an open homicide investigation, and is therefore not releasing many details. However, he did explain the anatomical process by which Kendrick may have died. If the corroded body is stimulated, it senses that blood pressure has increased, he explained. It will slow the heart rate down. The slowing down can cause a major slowing, a standstill of the heart. If that happens, you can have a dead patient. Anderson said that Kendrick's injuries were also near the lower portion of his brainstem. Trauma there, he explained, can cause a shutdown in the same way. My recommendation is to redo the investigation, open it back up, and find out what happened. It was during the second autopsy that the medical examiner found that Kendrick's organs were missing, and instead his body was stuffed with newspaper. The Johnsons immediately submitted Anderson's finding to the Lowndes County coroner, the GBI, and the U.S. They're hoping to prompt further investigation into the case. After the results were released, a GBI spokesperson told CNN News that the agency stands by its findings. CNN also reported that U.S. Attorney Michael Moore is reviewing the case but has not yet launched a formal investigation. We've been working on this for some time, he told the news station. I'm sure at the appropriate time I'll speak with his pathologist. As for the Johnsons, they believe these results confirm what they've long believed. Kendrick was beaten to death. Now the truth is getting out there, Kenneth Johnson said. Now we just want to see someone behind bars. Kendrick's parents have recently filed a $100 million wrongful death lawsuit that names more than 30 defendants and the city of Valdosta. It is alleged in the lawsuit that Kendrick was lured into the gym by an unidentified white female. It was there that a teen named Brian Bell and his brother allegedly assaulted Kendrick. The lawsuit further alleges that the father of the boys, FBI agent Rick Bell, encouraged the boys to assault Kendrick. Furthermore, with the eventual release of surveillance tapes has come a lot of controversy. Many suspect that the videos have been tampered with. The footage is jumpy, with students intermittently appearing and vanishing, and they bear no obvious timestamps. The Johnsons' attorneys were not shy in stating their suspicion that someone tampered with the videos. We don't have any time code which to synchronize the events that are shown in the video. Either the cameras did this on their own or a human being interacted to make these cameras do these things, says King, who believes someone corrupted the video. However, Lowndes County Schools insist the video is a raw feed with no edits, and the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office, which asserts Johnson accidentally died while reaching for a shoe in the mats, says it didn't edit any files. However, Grant Fredericks, a forensic video analyst, reviewed the tapes himself and noted the following. There is at least an hour of missing video from all 4 cameras inside the gym. Those files are not original files, Fredericks said. They're not something investigators should rely on for the truth of the video. The video has been altered in a number of ways, primarily in image quality and likely in dropped information loss. There are also a number of files that are corrupted because they've not been processed correctly and they're not playable. I can't say why they were done that way, but they were not done correctly and they were not done thoroughly, so we're missing information. 2 cameras in the gym are missing an hour and 5 minutes, their hiatus ending at 1:09 when Johnson enters the gym. Another pair of cameras are missing 2 hours and 10 minutes each. They don't begin recording again until 1:15 and 1:16 according to their timestamps. What's certain, based on video from a camera outside the gym, is that numerous students walked into the gym during the hour and 5 minutes that the cameras weren't recording. But it's not clear whether that was sufficient to activate the camera's motion sensors. The timestamp on a camera outside the gym also appears to be 10 minutes behind the cameras inside the gym. I can't tell you whether there was no information recorded in the digital video system or whether somebody made an error and didn't capture it or whether somebody just didn't provide it, Fredericks said. We are Kendrick Johnson, his mother said. That's my child, and we're going to fight until it's all over, until we get the truth. That's all we've ever asked for, the truth about what happened to Kendrick Johnson.